I like the film very much. I think after the disappointment of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which I did think was, flashy but empty, this has the kind of the forensic appeal of Zodiac and the high sheen gloss of something like The Game. The plot, as was sort of recounted there, is that fifth wedding anniversary, Nick comes home, finds his wife missing, and the finger of suspicion then starts to point to him. Meanwhile, we hear her voice through diary entries. So you have two time frames going on at the same time. So when people have talked about plot spoilers, I mean, bear in mind, you could actually see any scene of this film and not know when that scene was taking place. But essentially what happens is he's in the present and the diary entries are sort of revealing. And also, so you've got two versions of the story. It's a bifurcated story. And I think what Gillian Flynn has done very well is to take that structure from the book and adapt it and change it for the screen. It's a hard thing to do, but I think she's done it terrifically well. On the one hand, it's a kind of putative murder mystery. On the other hand, it's a sort of cynically sexy social satire. He himself said that as it gets into the third act, it becomes a kind of an absurdist, sort of hyperbolic drama. The whole film is really about role playing. It's about everyone is playing roles, everyone is performing for each other and also for themselves. I mean, you could see it on the one hand as a companion piece to The Game, in which there's this whole thing in which Sean Penn elaborately sets up this game that Michael Douglas doesn't know he's a part of. You could see it as a companion piece to the social satire, to the Social Network, because very quickly the most important thing for Nick doesn't become finding his wife, but realigning his public image, because there's a photograph of him on Twitter and an image of him smiling on the news, and the next thing, the media are declaring that he is a smiling sociopath. And so rather than looking for his wife, the really important thing is learning from Tanner Bolt, brilliantly played by Tyler Perry as the attorney who's the patron saint of wife killers, of how to come across better. So the film is about projected images. Also, of course, Amy is already fictionalized. Amy is somebody whose mother has written these books called The Amazing Amy Tales. So she's kind of living this fictional life anyway, because she already exists in the public consciousness, which is why the police move so fast, because she has some sort of celebrity. Let's find Amazing Amy. So all these levels of role playing, of people pretending to be things for themselves and for each other, are going on through the film. The reference points that people have made in terms of other filmmakers are things like Hitchcock and, Henri-Georges Clouzot, and you can understand that because the whole film is about balancing sort of two irreconcilable worlds against each other and the tension that creates. I also think it's necessary to acknowledge that, Fincher himself has spoken about a distant connection to Fatal Attraction. I think you need to sort of acknowledge a connection to Paul Verhoeven and Joe Esterhaus and Basic Instinct, and that particularly in the setup, because it's a very, very Esterhaus setup, that there's a guy, he seems very likable, he's accused of a horrendous crime, and he's obviously being friend, but maybe he did it. Maybe he actually did do it, which is a kind of classic Joe Esterhaus setup. And then as we get into the third act, there are things in the third act that you think that actually could have been directed by Paul Verhoeven. I'm not entirely sure that the filmmakers would appreciate that comparison, but I think it is there. I think the reason that it works as well, it's also, the film looks beautiful. It's shot in 6K, very, very handsome widescreen by Jeff Cronenweth doing the cinematography. And it has that Fincher attention to detail. He seems to treat the story like a crime scene. He doesn't want to mess with anything. It's like every single thing in a scene looks like it's important, looks like it's significant. And when people, you see them in movies going into crime scenes, don't touch anything. And you do get the feeling when you're watching the film, don't disturb any of these surfaces, because everything is important. Now, as it turns out, some of it is, some of it isn't. There are red herrings and things which go off at different tangents. But what I like about it is that forensic sort of approach to filmmaking. Rosamund Pike talked about Fincher being one of those directors who do a scene again and again and again to get it right. And he said kind of entertainingly, look, you've spent millions of pounds getting the sets together and getting the actors in, and suddenly it's all about how fast you can do it. So when you watch the film, you know that everything in every frame has been put there on purpose. And because it has this very clear, very crystal clear frame, it's almost like there's a kind of hyper reality that you're looking at every detail. And you spend your whole way doing exactly what the movie wants you to do, which is picking your way through is he lying? Is that? And where's that come from? And that's what you want from a thriller. It's certainly in the last section, it falls over into exploitation and absurdity in a way which I kind of quite enjoy. Well, I enjoy very much. And at 149 minutes, which is a lengthy running time, there was no point that I was bored. So I think it's Fincher back on the top of his game. I think it's a brilliantly adapted script. I think Gillian Flynn has done a terrific job of taking her novel and adapting her script. Very good performance by Ben Affleck doing that kind of likeable schmo who might have something behind it. But Rosamund Pike, wow.